and he'll watch as they come in on the Zoom. And he'll watch the questions that, or these guys will feed the questions that come in from Facebook Live, and then Jim will reread them to you. So that way you can just focus on your presenting.
Great.
Now we can see you, James. Can't hear you yet. I can see you.
All right, should be better now.
Okay. Looks like we've got the Facebook Live streaming and probably participants coming in. So we'll get started in just a minute, everybody. In case you're wondering if you're in the right spot, you are on the EEC, or Entrepreneurs Education Collaborative monthly webinar. And this month's webinar is the presentation on Size Up, which is the no-cost market research and insights for entrepreneurs. We'll get started in just a minute after others have come in and joined the meeting. And we thank you for joining us today.
Blake, do you want to launch the poll while people are joining?
Sure, make things easy on folks, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we're at exactly 11:30 Central Time, so we'll get things started with the presentation. And those of you who have joined today's session, you'll see that we've also got a poll up on the screen that we'll ask you to respond to, because this is the Entrepreneurs Education Collaborative, and we are all about providing content and topics relevant to what you're looking for your local small businesses. So please choose your responses here, and we'll publish the results. And we do take that very seriously when we're planning our future content, including the content that we are currently planning for 2023 EEC sessions. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. This is the Entrepreneurs Education Collaborative's monthly virtual session. And today's session is titled Size Up, the no-cost market research and insights for entrepreneurs. Today is Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. My name is Blake Martin. I'm a local entrepreneur, like a lot of you, and a founding member of the Entrepreneurs Education Collaborative, or EEC. The EEC, who hosts these sessions, is a collaborative and collective effort of the following community resource providers. This is the long list that you're all required to memorize: the Better Business Bureau, Catholic Charities, the Greater Omaha Chambers Reach Initiative, the Nebraska Enterprise Fund, Nebraska Business Development Center, OPPD, who's playing a big role in today's presentation, the SCORE Mentors of Greater Omaha, the Business Ethics Alliance, the U.S. Small Business Administration, and welcome to the Grow Nebraska Women's Business Center, who is a new member of the Entrepreneurs Education Collaborative. It's a joke. You don't have to memorize all those names. Just remember that we are your one-stop shop for all things small business, education, and advocacy around here. A few housekeeping items before we get going. Remember to turn your phones to Tase to eliminate distractions. And you might want to close other browser tabs that you have open if you're experiencing any bandwidth issues as you're listening to this. Do be aware that, as always, all participants will be muted throughout this session. We want you to ask questions as soon as you think of them, or submit comments. You can do that either through the Zoom chat and through the Zoom questions, or through, if you're watching on Facebook Live here, go ahead and put it in the comments. We'll do our best to make sure all of those questions and comments are addressed after the presenter goes through his presentation today. And of course, this is recorded and posted like all of our sessions. It's on Facebook Live, so it'll be there right away. And then we put it on our Facebook page. When you go to Facebook, you just put in Entrepreneurs Education Collaborative, or you can Google Entrepreneurs Education Collaborative. It'll bring you to our page with all of our archived recordings, including the recording of this, which will be posted typically in 24 to 48 hours of the completion of this session. Speaking of sessions, we will be continuing with monthly virtual Wednesday webinars through the end of 2022, except December. We take December off. These are 11:30 a.m. sessions, and the next two sessions coming up will be the third Wednesday in October. That's the 19th. And the topic is small business opportunities to expect in 2023. And then the third Wednesday in November, the 16th, will be on SourceLink Nebraska, which is your one-stop platform for startup resources, small business startup resources. You may have seen that we did a session on that when that first launched almost a year ago. Now they've got a year under their belt, and we're going to hear all about the improvements and enhancements that SourceLink has made in their resource portal. So can't wait to hear about those updates. On your screen, if you haven't already, you'll see that we've got a future topics poll. And before we do the introduction of our presenter today, we're going to ask that you all complete that poll, choose the topics that it is multiple choice. So choose topics that you'd like to see EEC cover in upcoming webinars, including in 2023. We'll take a minute for that, and then we'll get started with our presentation today. So I'm assuming folks are still completing the topics. Got to have our audience participation. Otherwise, we don't know what to talk about. We don't want to talk about topics that we think are interesting. We want to make sure we cover topics that you find interesting, important, and valid to your businesses and your career.
It looks like we've got a majority of responses, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll.
Thanks, Susie. Appreciate that. So it looks like we've got client retention up at the top, customer service, e-commerce, of course, social media marketing is up there. This is really good information for us. See a lot in regards to talent acquisition and retention. Big surprise right now, right? Challenge for everybody. So thank you to all of you. We take this feedback very seriously, and it's a core component of planning our future content, which we're doing right now for 2023. With that, I'll turn it over to James Caraway. And the reason I'm turning it over to James to introduce our presenter, James is with OPPD. OPPD, which is a partner of the EEC, is who has made it possible for us to have this session today. OPPD has a small business economic development department. James leads that department, and they have made the investment at OPPD to bring this size up product to the market. So James, take it over, give the introduction to our presenter, Mario, and we'll be off to the races.
Awesome. Thank you, Blake. My name is, once again, James Caraway. I'm a senior economic developer for the Omaha Public Power District. At OPPD, one of our goals as an organization is to offer and promote effective tools, resources, programs, products, and services to educate our business customer owners and support economic growth, sustainability, and vitality. We did a lot of due diligence, and we found the tool Size Up. We believe this Size Up Nebraska tool is the right tool to help us with all of these goals. So on that note, we've brought in Mario Ublade, the Director of Customer Support at Size Up, to help us understand this tool and its importance to small business growth and development. Mario has a really great background in this field. He went to UC Berkeley. He's a really smart guy, and he loves coffee. So that's a great thing that we have in common, that if you love coffee as well, you can just talk to Mario and I after this, and we'll be able to really help you out on a few things. So on that note, I'll pass it to Mario and let him get started.
Great. Thank you so much, James. Really appreciate it. I'm really excited to be with you today. I'm so excited that I'm in the middle of an international conference, but I am 100% investing my time to meet with you today to talk about the amazing investment that OPPD and James have made in supporting local small businesses and giving them access to the same tools that big businesses have. So just before we get started on a live demo, and this is going to be a live demo, the things that you're going to see me doing are the things that you can do. I hope you wait until after the session is over, because it might be really exciting to see what you're going to see. But I want to provide a little bit of context before we get started. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I promise it's not going to be a PowerPoint heavy presentation, but I do want to provide context. So what you're going to see is a business intelligence for you. This is not generic information. This is about your business plan in your location with your marketing plan, your unique services and products. But the information we're supplying to you is the same information that big businesses have. It's the information that they get from their business analysts for your multinational companies, or maybe even your national franchises are going out to, the McKinseys and Deloittes of the world to produce this information. But we're now putting it in the hands of your business, and at a time when you have the ability to access this information. A lot of small businesses are so busy Monday through Friday, running their business from 9 to 5 or maybe 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. that they traditionally don't have the ability to engage with the support that you see right now on the screen. And so the starting steps are on evenings and weekends. Is an online tool. You can use this whenever you need to use the tool. It works on mobile as well. We also recognize that it has to be simple to use. So while the information is very powerful, we're only going to ask 2 things to get you started. What is the industry that you're working in, and where are you working in that job or in that company or whatever? Or for an entrepreneur, where are you thinking about starting up your business, or where are you thinking about opening another location? And the last thing is, we know that while the online world is very possible as a tool for business now, we still work in the offline world. We have partners, attorneys, accountants, investors. So all the information that you're going to see right now can also be supplied to you as a PDF. So you can cut and paste it and put it into your business plan, marketing plan, or just slice and dice the information in Excel or whatever spreadsheet that you like. So let's talk about where we are right now as an economy. You see this little dip right here? This is the formations of new businesses in the US. So this dip that you see right here was the start of the pandemic, and we thought that was a trend. We thought that we were going to see more and more businesses close, fewer and fewer businesses open. The opposite actually happened. We have more new businesses starting now in the US than has ever happened before, and it's unprecedented. Now, it is going up and down, as you can see, but this is not just about the US. This is also happening in the Midwest, and you can see what's happening right here in Nebraska. Why does this matter? Well, if we were just to look at a startup, and this applies to existing businesses as well, this is the 5-year survival rate for new businesses. So you can see at the end of year 5, about 50% of new businesses have failed. But when we look at why they failed, it's really important to understand what's happening. You see this little sliver here, we can blow it up, about a third, and I'm rounding, of businesses fail because it's a natural death. They're selling horseshoes when people have moved on to cars, or they're trying to rent DVDs when people are moved to streaming services. But about 2/3 of businesses fail because they're not prepared. By giving them objective data to understand how their business, how their industry is performing, we can create a situation where instead of this 50% of businesses are failing, we only have this tiny sliver. So that's what we're hoping SizeUp's going to do for you. We don't, unfortunately, have the time to go through every single industry. So I do want to provide a little bit of guidance, which is it works for any industry at whatever level you want to analyze. So if you're looking at opening a restaurant, because you're just an amazing chef, you can look at all restaurants, everything from white tablecloth to a taco truck, or you can look at Italian or pizza, or you can look at healthcare services to hospitals to just an X-ray lab. If you are dealing with cars, you can look at everything related to cars. It could be vehicle maintenance or used car sales, all the way down to motor repair. There's no category that SizeUp can't support. There's no size of business that it can't support, even though it's intended to be used primarily by small and medium-sized businesses. And whether your business is local and you want to look at the local neighborhood, we can help you with that. Or if you're exporting to all 50 states, the tool can scale to whatever your trade area is. And so you're going to see 3 modules. The first is the My Business Benchmarking module. This is going to give you objective information about how your business is performing against your industry competitors, your peers. The second one we call the competition tool. It allows you to see your entire business ecosystem. We call it the competitors tool, but it really lets you show you supply chain. And also you can look at for existing customers or as a prospecting tool for new customers. And lastly, we're going to look at advertising. I know that was one of the topics that Blake put up in that poll. We're going to show you how that tool can help inform some of the information you're going to get in these upcoming webinars on where to advertise. So this should be a very interactive session. If you have any questions, please ask them at any time. Armando on our team is going to be here to answer any technical questions that we don't save to the end for discussion. And so without any other delays, you wanted a live demo, we're going to give you a live demo. So the first thing that you're going to do is head on over to the OPPD site. You can see that there's a link right here to the tool. When you click on it, it's going to take you to the tool. Now, you notice we're not asking for NAICS or SIC codes. We know most businesses don't know what those are. Even if they do, they may not know what theirs is. So all you have to enter is, and you know what, James set me up. We're going to go to coffee shops right here. And we can look at anywhere in the OPPD service territory, but let's go ahead and go to Omaha. So you see just 2 questions answered and you're going to get started. You can choose the type of analysis you want to do. While we could jump ahead to figure out how we can market better or where our competitors or customers are, let's go ahead and start at the beginning. For small businesses, a lot of this information can be very hidden because you're just running your business. You don't necessarily know what your competitors are doing. Let's say that our coffee shop was making $1 million. Is that good or bad? Well, it turns out that that's actually a pretty good coffee shop in Omaha. You can see that in the county, people are drinking a little bit more coffee, a little bit higher revenue. Maybe the commute in is a little bit longer. You can see what's happening at the metro level, state and nation. Then we can also see areas where those coffee shops are making more or less money. And there's reasons for that. You may want to go visit there and say, why is this coffee shop making more than a coffee shop in a different location? As we go through these different KPIs or key performance indicators or benchmarks, you're going to see that we provide the chart data here. If you want a table that you can cut and paste into Excel, you'll see that. And you'll also see a map area that you can zoom in and zoom out of to get more information. Now, revenue only tells part of the story. We may want to look at the overall trends within a given industry. Imagine if you were thinking about starting a coffee shop and you think, well, isn't there a Starbucks on every corner? Is there space for me to open my new coffee shop? The answer is you can look at those trends. Now, you may not be interested. You may not be a national coffee shop. And you'll see here at the bottom of the legend, you can actually click here and then remove the geographies that you're not interested in analyzing. So now you're seeing how many coffee shops opened in 2021 in Omaha. Or maybe you want to understand historically what was happening. You know, like maybe there was a global pandemic and fewer businesses opened. And then coming out of the pandemic, we see this surge of new business openings. We can see 39 new coffee shops opened in the state, 20 in the metro, 15 in the county, 14 in the city. And this is vital information. If you're an entrepreneur or an existing business and you see that the trends in your industry are declining, maybe you need to pivot. While coffee shops are looking great, if they weren't, maybe you say, hey, I can add food and become a cafe and start providing that type of information. So this gives you information about the overall health of your industry. We can also look at salary. So for instance, $15,000 may not seem a lot. Well, that 150,000 would be a lot, but 50,000 may not be a lot. We can actually see that that's a fairly fair compensation for someone in the coffee industry. Maybe you want to make sure that you're retaining your talented workforce. So you could say, well, if I raise their salary, is this more competitive? And you'd say, yes, I'm actually above average in terms of what people are making in Douglas County, about $2,500 more than what they're making in Nebraska, and about average with the United States. You can also see areas where people have to pay more for that particular skill set, whether it's a barista or a machinist or an attorney or a dentist or anything else. And this is where it becomes really valuable. Let's say that our coffee shop has 8 people in it. We start to have context about how our unique business is performing. So 8 people is actually a really small coffee shop. The average is 13. As a matter of fact, you can see really average across the city, the county. 13 is the number that you're looking for. And you can see where you have larger coffee shops, right, over here, and smaller coffee shops at different parts of the region. So it's so valuable because you're making certainly above average revenue, but look at what you're doing with, you're paying more than the average salary, but with fewer employees. Now we can start looking at, the size of those employees and cost effectiveness. So while we were just a little bit above average with this coffee shop that James and I started using this information, we can actually see that our cost effectiveness, because we have fewer employees, we're doing so much more revenue with fewer employees, our cost effectiveness is 50% above average. And you can see where coffee shops are more or less productive in terms of number of employees and salary and information. And that context is helpful. You may think that you're doing poorly in revenue, but in terms of cost effectiveness, you're great. Or maybe you're thinking you're doing really great in revenue, but SizeUp can say maybe you're not as efficient as you could be. And so you can look at different inputs and outputs from your business. We can look at revenue per capita, which is a really valuable tool because now you can compare on a map areas where people are spending a lot of money on coffee or in areas that are receiving that revenue. So depending on what your business model is, where the people live or where is that revenue coming to, you might be able to optimize where you want to locate your second location. And you can see where that revenue per capita is highest. Another thing that can be really challenging for small businesses is understanding what's happening within the industry as a whole. So imagine if you were that, let's say 13-person coffee shop, you might be frustrated if you're losing 1 to 2 employees. That's a significant percentage of your workforce. And you have to go, oh, I have to recruit, I have to retrain my talented workforce, and it's hard to do. Well, I have news for you. Objectively, through the lens of data, you should probably be losing 3 to 4 employees. So what you thought was a challenge is actually a testament to the culture, the product, the service, whatever it is that you have that's allowing you to retain greater than your fair share of employees. And if you're not a national franchise, you may not know what the level of turnover is in your industry. You may just be managing your auto repair shop or your coffee shop or your beauty salon. And this helps you to understand objectively what you might expect as a business owner or a general manager within that given industry. We can also see the trends within different areas. And we can also look at things that unless you have a professional back office, HR team, you can look at healthcare costs. You only know what you're paying, and then you can see what would be average for the state. Or you can even look at workers' compensation to see how much you're paying versus a typical business in the industry. And the nice thing about this is at the end, we have a summary view. So if you click that little button, summary view right now, you're going to get an entire dashboard of your business performance. So you can start running through scenarios. Maybe you're a specialty coffee shop or organic, locally roasted beans. You have one location and you're thinking, maybe if I extend my hours, I can create a little bit more revenue. Maybe you pop up from $1 million to $1.25 million in revenue. Fantastic. But you also may have to add a few more employees to cover those extra hours. And so you can actually see what the effect would be on your cost effectiveness. So if you did go from $1 million to $1.25 million, but you added 2 more employees, your cost effectiveness would go from 50% to 10%. So you can start to analyze how the tool is working for you with your different business scenarios. So this is the first of 3 modules. That's the My Business or benchmarking tool. And it helps you to understand objectively how your business is performing within your given industry. I'm going to pause here now. I know that we have Jim and Armando here. Were there any questions specific to this module, guys, that I should address?
Right now, there are currently no questions in the Q&A. I do want to remind you guys that we are open to answering these in real time. If you direct on the bottom of your Zoom screen, there is a box that says Q&A. If you click in there, we'll probably be happy to answer.
Great.
Yeah, and wait a second. Winsley, have you seen any come through Facebook yet? Okay. Reminder, we are watching Facebook Live as well. So thanks, Armando.
All right. And thank
Mario,
you.
it's Blake. I do have a question.
Yes.
Where does this data come from?
Okay, I usually hold that to the end, but I think we're at a good pausing point right now. So we'll talk about the data. And I'm just going to pop over really quickly to the next module, and then we'll jump back just so I provide some context for that. One of the things I'll point out before I go over, you notice there's a little info button here. Some of you may feel like you're, what do they say, drinking through a fire hose because there's so much data here. I don't want you to worry. One, Blake and his team are going to have this recording up for you. If at any time on any module you have questions, you can click this info button and it's going to show you a context module specific tutorial. And you can literally play this video, scroll down and play along and enter the same data that you're seeing on the tutorial video. It's a minute or less and it will help you go through the process. So in terms of the question that you're asking about where the data comes from, I just want to switch over to the competition tool just for a second so you can see this. So before we were looking at aggregate business information. So that's all businesses within an industry. But you can see we have individual businesses here that are selling coffee. So with that in mind, now that you've seen those individual business points, let me go ahead and go back to my PowerPoint screen. And I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. And we're going to talk a little about data. As you notice, we have multiple modules in Size Up, Nebraska. Each of the different parts of the module get different data sets. We have hundreds of different data sets. But in order, again, to try to keep this simple, we like to think about data sets as occurring in buckets, right? So there's your industry bucket, which if you want to be technical is called firmographic data. We have demographic data, and then we have your kind of map or geographic data. So depending on the industries that you're in, it might be coming from different sources. You know, your publicly traded stock market companies, many of whom might be owned by a guy who lives in Omaha, known as the Oracle. They have to put their stock market information and release their quarterly reports. So it can be from hundreds of public data sources, federal business filings, professional licenses. As you know, if you're an attorney, you have to pass the bar exam, or you're a CPA. The information, we have over 14 million businesses. That's updated every 3 months. Now, I do want to provide a little bit of background on that. We update it every 3 months, but that information might be in arrears, 3 to 6 months. So it might be delayed up to 9 months total. So you may see businesses that exist in real life that aren't on our tool, or you might see a business that's closed that hasn't been removed from our tool. But we do update the information every 3 months. That also includes all of the calculations. So while we're showing you that coffee shop information in terms of revenue, that's really not just a number, that's all those individual coffee shops getting added up. So that information's, the benchmarks are updated every 3 months. If you look at, say, unemployment information, workers' compensation, healthcare, that comes from a variety of sources. Some of it comes from the government. That's updated annually. We get that from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Bureau of Economic Analysis. You get the information there. We're going to show you a heat map in a moment. So a heat map is where we show you concentrations of whatever factor you're looking at. That consumer expenditure data, as you know, Visa and MasterCard probably know more about how you spend your money than you do. And we don't have any personally identifiable information. We're not saying you spend that money. We're saying within that area, that's the money that is spent. That information is updated every 6 months. When we get to the advertising tool, you're going to see a real mashup of that data, because we're going to be looking at consumer expenditures that's updated every 6 months, along with business revenue that's updated every 3 months. So the data comes from hundreds of different data sets. It's updated as frequently as we can. And it's really important to subscribe to the newsletters that James and his team put out, because we update our clients and then they're able to share that information with you. So please do make sure that after this, you're signing up for all of the agencies that are helping you succeed. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that particular window share. And I'm going to go back to the application, unless there were questions that came up during that segue into data.
So yes, there was one.
Okay.
If there's nothing on the map, does that mean that there are no other businesses in the area?
Yes, but the map is completely flexible. So if I'm sharing the map again, we could zoom out. Remember, the analysis always has to start, in this case, in Omaha. But let's say that you do know that there's a specific coffee shop you want to look at. You see, you can just keep moving out. Really valuable supply chain. I won't show that so much right now, but you can always adjust the analysis area by navigating the map. Or if you prefer, you can, if you like lists as opposed to maps, you can always go out to your 330th coffee shop and look at it that way. So I do want to show you one tool on this. Oh, and I apologize. I did mention to you, any report can be exported to PDF. you just click on the PDF button, and then all that information that you were seeing before is now available that way, in case I missed that. The same thing is true with this tool. So I did want to show you one thing. We've been really talking about retail, or what we call B2C, right? Business to consumer data. And this tool has a really interesting thing. Here's your heat map. If we were a coffee shop and we wanted to understand consumer expenditures, we have hundreds of categories. Actually, it's more like 1,000 for consumer expenditures. So we could look at food and beverage. We could look at food away from home. Just like I showed you before, where you can look at all restaurants and then Italian and then pizza. The same thing happens with the heat maps. So if I'm just a coffee shop that's only open for breakfast and brunch, this might be the category that I want to look at. And you're going to see both total in terms of the business revenue within these geographies, and then average household spending. You can just toggle between them. So you can see what's happening here. And again, if you wanted to, you could zoom out further, and then you could do this analysis. Now you're seeing at the zip code level. You zoom out further, you can see it at the county, state, so on and so forth. So overlaying this information of the heat maps for consumer-facing businesses can be really valuable. But I think where this tool can really shine is for industrial purposes. So what we would call more B2B, or business to business transactions. So let's switch from coffee shops. And while we could use this for any industry, let's go ahead and talk about something that we know that's happening right now, right? There's a shortage of housing. And so we know that all of these carpenters are looking for work, helping to build those houses that everyone wants to buy. So now you're seeing all of the people that are related to the carpentry business in and around whatever city that you want to focus on as your center of analysis. So, we could go to another city, as you see here, but for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll just stick with Omaha. We might want to identify as a carpenter, maybe I have a 5-person crew. So I'm not ready to take on like those big building projects, from like KB Homes or Lennar or, those large home builders, but I might be interested in working for boutique single family home, creators. So here we have competition, and you're going to notice these are the individual businesses. I'm going to switch over to customers, and now I'm going to define the industries that are my customers. So I'll go ahead and do single family house construction. And now you're going to get a list of all the companies that are involved in single family home construction. Now, maybe I'm not a frame carpenter, maybe I'm a finish carpenter. So I'm doing built-ins and, closets and cabinets. Well, those skill sets might also be applicable to, let me see, commercial and office building construction, right? Attorneys, lawyers, dentists, they need shelves to put all of those patient or customer files in. So you can add or subtract by clicking on this industries tab as many industries as you want to sell to or buy from. Now we're looking at all these businesses, and we can find out more information about them, right? Here's a construction company, here's their website. They've been in business for 6 years. Again, and you can go through this, you can use it as a prospecting tool. You can find out if this is a business that matches your particular skill set, the type of projects that you want to work on. Maybe they're a contemporary home builder. Maybe they build modern homes. Maybe they build energy efficient homes. But as a carpenter, this can be really valuable for you, both in terms of understanding your existing customers and using this as a prospecting tool. Of course, the other thing that you would need are supplies. So we can go ahead and we could just say, I'm working on smaller projects. I can just go to a hardware store. And of course, you're going to see your standard, there's total tool supply. You get the idea. Maybe, I'm sorry, this was hardware wholesalers. So I showed an example. I wasn't even trying to. So these are wholesale hardware stores. But if we were looking at regular hardware stores, there we go. We've just added in some of those Ace Hardwares, Lowe's, Home Depots. Maybe you start working on really big projects or specialty projects. So maybe there's not enough lumber at your local, big box store for you. You can change the level of analysis. Now we're looking at lumber wholesalers, or heck, we can go right to the mills themselves, depending on what we need. And this is really valuable. Let's go ahead and look. So let's go look at sawmills and planing mills. And what we might want to find out is we need this special tree from Minnesota that we're going to use in these energy efficient homes. You could go ahead and zoom out, and we're going to super crunch millions and millions of data points and fill in those suppliers within that project geography that we just described. And so you can go out here and you can say, oh, I want to look at the sawmill over in Springview, Nebraska, or other places. Or as I mentioned, we can go up here and look at Rieger Logging up in North Home, Minnesota. And I apologize if I mispronounce the name of those cities, but you get the idea. You can look at whatever area suits your particular business purposes. So this is the competition tool. It really allows you to see your entire business ecosystem and then do a deep dive into the individual components and businesses of that to understand your entire world that you're operating in, your competitors, your customers or potential customers, and lastly, your supply chain. So that is the second of 3 modules in Size Up Nebraska. Let me go ahead and pause and see if we have any questions that are specific to that module.
I do want to point out that right now you can ask your questions in the chat now.
All right, great. So I don't see any questions about this in particular, but I know that you're excited about what you're seeing. You're just holding your questions to the end. So we'll get to them after we move to the third tool. Oh, I'll just again point this out. The PDF button is right here. So if you wanted to have that information in a paper format or something that you incorporate into your other documents, here are your competitors, here are your customers, here are your suppliers. Whatever you see on screen, you can go ahead and export. So we're going to move to the advertising tool. For the advertising tool, I like to focus on businesses that we know are advertising. I just drove up from Austin, Texas to Oklahoma City. And let me tell you, I saw a lot of billboards for people getting hit by trucks. I don't know exactly what's going on the I-35, but you know, if I was an attorney, I could probably figure out maybe what that advertising is. But I like to focus on stories that I am more familiar with. And so I have 2 daughters, a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. They hated going to the dentist. I think we all understand why young kids don't like going to the dentist. But I found our dentist via advertising. He was specifically advertising as a family dentist. And if I was a dentist, I might just want to look at this level of analysis. This is literally the Jerry Maguire, Rod Tidwell way of thinking advertising. Show me the money. These are where more money is being spent on dentistry. And so you may want to advertise in those areas, and you can see the concentration here. Now, I don't know about you, but you know, Size Up is a small business, so we have to watch every dollar as well. 33 zip codes is a lot of zip codes to advertise in, and I'm not sure that that's my target market. Maybe what we're looking for is underserved markets. So these are areas where there's a discrepancy or difference, delta, between the income that is being spent there and the revenue that's being made. And I'm also a dentist, so maybe I have a special value proposition like my dentist does. We were willing to drive about 25 miles to see our dentist because he's got screens on the ceiling with wireless headphones. So my 10 and 5-year-old watch My Little Pony and they're not screaming and crying, and that makes everyone happy. I'm not going to lie, my dentist charges a little bit more. So he might want to factor on minimum household revenue or income of $75,000. And he's a dentist. So you want to be old enough to have teeth, not so old you're losing them. That's a different type of dentistry. And so we went from 33 zip codes. Now we're down to 18. And we know that these 18 are the exact zip codes that match our particular criteria. And we can see the various demographic characteristics that we put in here to see where we'd want to maximize the value of our advertising dollar. Now, where you advertise is going to change. Maybe it's going to be on the back of grocery store receipts. I think I bought candy and he must have said, hey, anyone who buys candy at this grocery store, put my ad on there. He's probably got kids, right? And so you can see that information here. You might choose to advertise on Facebook or the local newspaper, billboards, community centers, wherever it might be, your local chamber. But this is showing you where you can maximize the value of each dollar spent because you've targeted your specific demographic. And if you work with a third-party advertising firm or someone who's doing social media buys for you, you can export to PDF. And what you're going to notice is it's going to show you the analysis right on the PDF, median age between 5 and 50, household income greater, and then it's going to highlight that information on the PDF export so you have it to use. So that is the advertising tool. This is an example of B2B or B2C advertising. You can use this tool though, in terms of optimizing advertising if you are a company that's advertising your product or service to another company. We just changed the type of analysis. Going back to the example I had earlier of a carpenter, you might want to know where the best places to advertise in single family house construction. We could go ahead and go look at total employees. Why total employees instead of business revenue? Because houses are expensive. And so revenue may not be the best indicator of the size of the company that you're trying to work with. So instead of adjusting these demographic values here, I could go here and say, hey, I'm a small 5-person carpentry shop. I only want to work with boutique home builders. So I'm looking for home builders that have at most 10 employees. What we've changed now is the type of analysis. So I can say, hey, I'm looking for small home builders. I may want to go ahead and advertise in Omaha, Nebraska 68142, as opposed to Arlington, because they have smaller single family home builders in that area. We've just optimized advertising for a different use case. Instead of advertising to the consumer, you're advertising to the other business. Now, the beauty of this is, you know where to advertise. How you advertise is up to you. It's your unique value proposition. It's your unique service. Maybe you're not advertising for professional purposes on Instagram. Maybe it's LinkedIn or trade magazines or YouTube videos around building science or something of that nature. But you can export this information for business to business or business to consumer so that you can make sure that every dollar you're spending is going exactly where it needs to go. And so that is the third of the 3 modules in Size Up Nebraska. The My Business tool allows you to understand objectively how your business is performing. The competition tool helps you understand your entire ecosystem. And the advertising allows you to maximize each dollar that you spend on your marketing. And I hope this was a really valuable overview of a tool that you can do even more with as you start to dive in and put in the interesting characteristics of your business, your product, your service for your area. So unless there are any other questions about the advertising module, we'll go ahead and turn this over to the general QA. So who is my dentist? You're gonna have to drive really far from Nebraska to see my dentist, but it's Forest Family Dentistry, and they now have 3 locations in the Austin area. And it's called Forest Family Dentistry because he also makes his own wooden toys for the kids to play with before they get to the chair. So now you know it's a real story because you can go ahead and Google it and see that I'm telling you the truth. So hopefully there's other questions beyond my dentist that people wanted to ask, because I really want to make sure we're able to answer your questions. And it can be about your specific business.
Yeah, Leo only has 3 girls, all under 5, so I know the question. All right. What other questions do people have? Mario, this is great. Again, a shout out to OPPD for bringing this into the greater Omaha market. If I remember right, it covers like a spread of about 60 miles. Is that correct, Mario?
So for your core analysis, it occurs within the OPPD service territory. So you can move it around, but it extends. So the analysis has to begin there, but it can actually extend to whatever the trade area is for that business. I can give you an example that happened during that I shouldn't say happened. It's still happening. It kind of exploded during the pandemic. So let me show you the advertising tool again. Right now, we're just looking kind of locally. Let me clean up the map a little bit, just so things aren't so crazy on the competition tool as well. So if we go to the advertising tool, a lot of people started making things at home during the pandemic, like jewelry, that specialty jewelry. I know I went to UC Berkeley, go Bears. We don't have athletic success like you guys do in Nebraska, but I still support my team. There was a woman who was making knitted jerseys. So like yarn-based football jerseys. And things got a little bit cold in Texas during the pandemic. We had a snowpocalypse, and I could go on Etsy and go ahead. I know you guys have power thanks to James and his team. And you can get a California jersey knitted out of yarn by a grandmother in Idaho. So if she was using this tool, and I'm not saying she was, but you can imagine you could go to a category like jewelry or whatever it is, jewelry designers, homemade jewelry. You might not want to compete. Let's go to where the most revenue is spent on jewelry. But remember I said we could customize this? Let's go out nationwide. And we're looking at jewelry designers into, it was, there we go. So we're seeing where most of this money is spent. Maybe you don't want to advertise in Chester, New York or Winter Park, Florida or something. So you could actually look for underserved markets. And where you're in Omaha, you may want to be advertising in Milwaukee, Mesquite, El Paso, Tulare, Bakersfield. So you can customize the analysis for your particular customer and it will go nationwide. I'm sure if I went to Hula Skirts, we'd see a whole bunch of zip codes in Hawaii or something. But you get the idea. It does include Alaska and Hawaii as well. So while the analysis always has to start within the OPPD service territory, as I showed you on the competition map, you can also zoom out and then see those businesses in other areas if your trade area goes out to that space. All right.
Mario, we've got a few other questions that have popped in.
Okay.
All right, and I have some other questions. What's the system most used for in your experience? What have you seen the most used way that size up comes in handy?
Sure. Well, really, there's two basic use cases. It's one for entrepreneurs who are really trying to understand the level of performance that would fit within their business plan as they start to, create ideas of how they'd have to perform, where they want to do their business, what their potential, market area is. And then the second one is for existing businesses that are looking to optimize how they're performing. Right. So with the entrepreneur, you have a fictitious business and you're seeing how that would match up with reality. And then for the other business, you're an existing business, you have what you have, and you want to see if that's competitive or how you can optimize it. So the use cases are potentially limitless, but those are the two most typical use cases. We also do have third-party business support, right? It's accountants, it's business advisors, consultants, marketing people who use the tool to then help their customers as well. And that would be the third main one.
Okay, super. And then another question, it's a two-part question. I think I'll read the whole thing. On the advertising side, am I able to obtain the prospects information to market them directly? And this might add a little context. I am a realtor and have new condos / construction going into UNMC. How do I market my product directly to UNMC doing so? So it's a two-part question, but I think they tie together real well.
Sure. So I'm going to answer that question in a different way. It's absolutely possible to do. It's not something that we're focused on with this tool. The idea behind this tool is it's a starting point, and we err on the side of privacy. So where you would find value in the tool is narrowing things down to the zip code, or as I showed you, you can zoom in and you can get to the neighborhood level to identify the characteristics that match. And trust me when I say there are hundreds of companies beyond just Visa, MasterCard, Experian, they can identify those individual consumers or consumer groups. And you can generate your mailing list or direct call list or something along those lines. But that's not the intent of our tool. Our tool is to get you to that kind of neighborhood level. And then for individual lists, you would go to another data vendor to get that. I hope that answered the question. If not, please clarify and I'll do my best to answer it.
Yeah, and then while we're hearing back, do you see this more as a startup tool for business startups, or do you think it's more useful for businesses that have been around for a while?
I think it's valuable for any business that wants to be thoughtful about how they're operating. So whether you're starting up, whether you're an existing business that's been in business for 50 years and it's a family business, you can use the tool. One of the things I should mention, it's not a use case that we talk a lot about, but for succession planning, this can be a really valuable tool. Imagine if you are a mom and pop beauty salon and you're like, well, I know how much revenue we make. We raised our family, we're ready to go retire. You might be really valuable to understand what the average beauty salon is making or how many beauty salons are in your community, so that you can understand maybe what your asking price is or the context in which you might pass this on to one of your, I know nothing about beauty salons, as you can tell, but maybe one of your barbers or stylists might want to buy the business from you, and you can give them objective information about how successful this business is, and maybe why they should pay you more or buy the business from you. So succession planning could be something else where the tool could be used.
Super. And just confirming, the address is https://nebraska.sizeup.com. That is listed in the chat, but that's where you can find this. Again, huge shout out to OPPD for having the progressive view of bringing this to our small business community. We are super excited to have you. Any other questions that, Lindsley, have you seen any on Facebook? Okay, Facebook's clean. If there's any other questions, otherwise, Mario, Armando, I'm sure we'll have questions going on. We'll work with James to get those questions to you. Just really appreciate all the hard work you've been doing in the community. And we do have a new question. This is a very important question. And is there a cost to using this? Well,
so I answer that by saying I think this is one of those ones we need to let James talk about. So James, if you're still available, I'll let you share the good news with everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks for the alley-oop. We've worked really hard to, like I said, work with SizeUp, work with EEC. And in order to do that, we have great board, great organization. We are providing this tool for free. We've signed a contract with SizeUp for a couple of years, so this will be available to everyone for free. Usually, when you're getting data of this type, it's going to cost you. In some of our research, we see like you can find data that's free, and a lot of times it's not good, it's not accurate, and it's really old. If you want good, accurate data that's up to date, it's going to cost you a lot of money. And so in order to get both, we have to reach out to SizeUp, and we are taking on all the costs for that. So yes, it is absolutely free. We encourage people to just go to the website, type in some things, just play around in the website. As you play around, more questions will come. Reach out to us, and we'll be able to answer those questions.
Hey, Jim, I'm not hearing you.
No, I got you. I was going to say, because OPP did underwrite it, let's make sure we use this product, because that's one of the best ways to keeping it around is demonstrating we use SizeUp and letting OPPD know that we use this to add a new product, or we use this in developing our business plan. It's really important we let them know so they can keep this product available to all of us in the small business world.
I'll add one thing to that if there's not any other questions coming in, and that is make sure you absolutely utilize this before you go to your banker or lender. If you're building a business plan, and now I'm talking from my perspective as a volunteer with SCORE, and what we do is help people build business plans. It's really important that you have data like this so that you can present an intelligent business plan to the person you're asking for money, whether that's for a startup or whether that's for capital to grow your business. So this is available now. Bankers and lenders in town are going to start to become aware of that, and it may actually be a deficit if you're not utilizing this as part of your business plan. So bear that in mind. Speaking of good data, Susie, would you mind launching the satisfaction poll? And as I'm doing some of my closing comments, we'll ask people to anonymously provide feedback on what they thought worked well, and if there's anything that didn't work well for them in this specific session today. As that's coming up, and it's there now, so please put in your answers. Again, this is very valuable for us as well. I want to take a moment to thank once more Mario and Armando from SizeUp for giving us a great demo and overview, a real life example of how this can be used to our advantage. And of course, again, to OPPD, who made the investment to make this possible for all of the small business owners and operators around town. We appreciate that. And it's good to have OPPD as part of our partnership. As those satisfaction surveys are coming in, I want to remind you as well, we'll continue through October and November with the monthly virtual sessions for EEC. They're always on the third Wednesday of each month. And so the upcoming sessions, which you'll also see in the chat there, The third Wednesday in October is the 19th, and the topic is going to be small business opportunities to expect in 2023. So a good overview from people who understand and study this stuff every day of what to expect to see changing in the market in 2023. And then Wednesday, November 16th, the third Wednesday in November, SourceLink Nebraska, another great tool, another great platform that helps you get the contact information you need to start or grow a new business in town. Looks like we got what we needed as far as the anonymous satisfaction surveys. So thank you for that. We're going to give you a couple minutes of your day back. We once again want to thank our hosts today, OPPD and Size Up, for being a part of this presentation, bringing this to our marketplace. Our next session is Wednesday, the 19th of October, and that's going to be at 11:30 a.m. It'll be virtual. Go to our Facebook page, just type in Entrepreneurs Education Collaborative. You'll get the posted recording for this session, which is typically up within a day. And then also sign up information for those upcoming sessions. You can go ahead and sign up for them now. We thank you for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you again in 1 month on the next EEC session. Thanks to all of you for being here today.
Thank you all. Everyone be safe.